The first time Trevor Darnell saw a cybernetic trooper, he was standing ankle-deep in mud beside a collapsed comms tower on the ice moon of Helion 6. The thing had dropped from a dropship like a chrome god, all reinforced plating and weapon mounts, scanning the terrain with a casual disregard for the blizzard chewing at its hull. It was the kind of machine you expected to see leading charges into plasma storms, not trudging through lunar sludge to help a maintenance tech. Trevor tightened the strap on his thermal mask and adjusted the diagnostic tablet clutched under his arm. The trooper approached in long, deliberate strides, each footfall hissing steam as it met the frozen ground. "I am Unit 79A, designation Ravel," the trooper said, voice crisp and mechanical. "Trevor Darnell, maintenance lead. Your comms relay's shot because someone thought sealing a heat sink with duct tape was a long-term fix." Unit 79 didn't respond. It tilted its head slightly, sensors glowing faint green. Trevor could feel it analyzing him, cataloging everything from his body temperature to the way he was favoring his right leg. "I'm fine," Trevor muttered, shifting his weight. "I did not inquire." Trevor snorted and turned back to the exposed wiring of the tower. "Figures?" Ravel stood silently for a moment, then stepped forward with a distinct lack of subtlety. "This is not a combat zone, no hostile signatures. Why are you trembling?" Trevor paused mid-scan. "I'm cold." "It's -40. Thermal regulation systems in this sector are adequate for human operation. Your fear is inefficient." Trevor looked up at the towering machine. "It's not fear, it's frostbite waiting to happen. Fear is a biological inefficiency. You should suppress it." Trevor exhaled and returned to the panel. "I'll pencil that in next to grow third lung for vacuum exposure." Ravel didn't move, it just watched. For the rest of the repair, it didn't offer help or comment, only observation. The kind that made Trevor feel like a specimen under glass. By the time the tower was humming again, Trevor's fingers had gone numb. He smacked the side of the panel to test its integrity and tapped his comm. "Tower 2C is back online," he said. "Should hold unless someone else gets creative with adhesives." "Affirmative," Ravel said. "Return to Central Station." Trevor turned, expecting to see the trooper already gone, but it remained, sensors still trained on him. "You're waiting for me, monitoring your return." Humans are prone to error under duress. What a charming bedside manner. Ravel said nothing. Back at Central Station, the airlock hissed open and warmth flooded Trevor's stiff limbs. He pulled off his mask and peeled the frost crust from his beard. Inside, the station was a blend of human practicality and alien over-engineering courtesy of the Federation's Joint Expansion Initiative. The Cybernetic Troopers were part of that too, designed by the Zalith to eliminate inefficiency in frontier operations. They never slept, never hesitated, and didn't understand fear. Or so they claimed. Trevor's supervisor, Marak, waved him over. The Kelonite was covered in a thin layer of iridescent scales and wore a permanent frown, though that might just have been his face. "You took an escort?" Marak asked, eyes flicking toward the screen showing Ravel outside the station. "Didn't ask for one. It insisted on observing." Marak tapped a few commands. "They've been doing that more often, compiling data on human behavior. They say it's to optimize mission outcomes. I think it's because we creep them out." Marak made a sound like sneezing into a jar of bees. "Humans don't have that much influence." Trevor raised an eyebrow. "Tell that to the last guy who screamed at a vent leak." The trooper called it inefficient hysterics. Next day, it was watching him eat breakfast. "They're machines. They don't care about your fear." Trevor glanced at the screen again. Ravel was still there, unmoving. "Sure," he said. "Tell that to its eyes." The next mission came 2 days later. A deep-range outpost had gone dark. Not unusual for Helion 6, its weather systems were notoriously hostile, but protocol demanded a welfare check. Trevor got tapped to lead the diagnostics team. Ravel volunteered to accompany them. The shuttle ride was quiet. Ravel stood in the corner, anchored to the wall like a statue. The other techs kept their distance. You ever wonder if they dream? Said Carson, a young engineer with a nervous laugh. Like, do they plug into some chrome fantasy world where everything's symmetrical and quiet? Trevor nudged him. Focus on the brief. If that outpost lost power, we'll be dragging batteries through 2 feet of ice. Carson chuckled softly. Yeah, right. When they arrived, the outpost was dark. No lights, no response to hails. The airlock was sealed but functional. Trevor keyed in the override and stepped inside, the others close behind. The internal lights flickered once, then stabilized. The silence was immediate and wrong, no hum of machines. No buzz of comms, just the low whine of wind outside. The interior looked untouched, equipment in place, meals uneaten, but there were no people. Anyone else getting a weird feeling? Carson whispered. Trevor nodded. Start scanning. Look for heat signatures, life signs, anything. Ravel stepped forward. No biological activity detected. All personnel have vacated or expired. No bodies, Trevor said. No signs of struggle, just gone. Analysis, psychological breakdown. Human personnel are susceptible to isolation-induced hysteria. Trevor crouched beside a console. That's a hell of a clean breakdown. Ravel walked slowly through the common area, sensors sweeping. Then it stopped. Correction. One biological presence detected, subterranean level, minimal movement. They moved quickly. The stairs to the sublevel creaked under their boots. Trevor led the way, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. At the bottom, they found a single survivor huddled in a corner, eyes wide and unblinking. It was Lieutenant Harris, one of the station's security officers. He wasn't injured, but he was shaking violently, whispering something under his breath. What happened? Trevor asked, kneeling. Harris didn't respond, just stared past him, lips barely moving. Trevor leaned closer. Lieutenant, look at me. Harris's eyes met his for a second. It's in the silence, he whispered. What is? But Harris shut down again, curling tighter into the corner. Ravel approached, scanning. No physical trauma, cognitive disruption detected, neural patterns erratic. Carson looked pale. He saw something. Trevor helped Harris to his feet. We're getting out of here, now. They didn't speak on the way back to the shuttle. Ravel stood silently behind them, watching Harris. Back at Central, Harris was sedated and taken to the medical wing. Trevor filed his report, but the questions wouldn't stop nagging. There were no signs of an attack, no environmental failure, no data corruption, just a man driven to the edge by something that left no trace. Ravel lingered outside the medbay. You don't believe it was psychological, Trevor said. I believe the evidence is incomplete. Trevor folded his arms. You said fear was inefficient, that humans should suppress it. Ravel turned its head slightly toward him. Fear is a biological response to perceived threat. It can be managed, but this was not fear, it was something else. What then? Ravel was silent for a moment. Then, I do not know. More incidents followed. Small listening posts going dark, drones vanishing mid-patrol. Survivors, when there were any, described it the same way, a pressure building in the silence. A presence that couldn't be seen, only felt. The troopers dismissed it at first. Statistical anomalies, environmental interference. But Trevor saw the change. The way Ravel lingered longer in corridors, the way it paused before entering dark rooms. Then came the night the silence came to Central. Trevor was in the systems bay recalibrating the long-range sensors when every screen blinked out. Power remained, but the feeds were gone. No alarms, no alerts, just a heavy, unnatural quiet. He tapped his comm. Control, this is Darnell. I've lost visual telemetry. Do you copy? No response. He moved to the door. It didn't open. A faint vibration began in the floor. Not mechanical, not seismic, rhythmic. Like something breathing below the station. The lights dimmed. Then he heard it just behind his ear, a whisper without words, dragging across his skin like static. He spun around. Nothing. He backed toward the emergency panel, hands trembling. His breath fogged in the suddenly cold air. The silence grew heavier, pressing into his chest. Then the door burst open. Ravel stepped through, weapon drawn. Trevor staggered back. What the hell is going on? Unknown force detected. Evacuate now. Trevor moved with him down the corridor, lights flickering overhead. The station felt wrong, expanded somehow, as if the walls had shifted while no one was looking. "What is it?" Trevor asked. Ravel's voice was slower than usual. "Unclear. It does not register on sensors, but it alters human perception, induces cognitive noise through silence." Trevor's heart pounded. "You mean it makes us hear things?" "It makes you fear things." They reached the control center. Empty. Chairs overturned, no blood, just absence. Then the whisper came again. Louder this time. Trevor dropped to his knees, clutching his ears. "Make it stop." Ravel moved between him and the dark hallway. Its sensors flickered, stuttering. "I am experiencing interference." Trevor looked up. "You? I am not supposed to feel fear." The whisper wrapped around them, deeper now, like a question waiting to be answered. Ravel turned to Trevor. "We must leave." Trevor forced himself to his feet. "You're afraid?" Ravel hesitated. "I now understand. Fear is not inefficiency. It is a warning." Then the hallway behind them darkened further and something stepped into view, but it wasn't seen, it was felt. The thing didn't move, it didn't need to. Just existing was enough to make Trevor's chest seize. The hallway behind it warped at the edges, like heat shimmer underwater. The overhead lights buzzed once, then settled into a dim, pulsing glow that somehow made the shadows heavier. Ravel stepped forward, shielding Trevor with one arm. Retreat corridor compromised. Alternate egress required. Trevor's throat felt like it had sand in it. "What's it doing?" "I cannot define its behavior. It is not approaching. It is not retreating. It is simply present." Trevor backed toward the auxiliary hatch on the right wall, fingers brushing along the panel. The manual override required a biometric confirmation. He pressed his palm flat. The lock hesitated, then blinked green. The door opened 3 inches and jammed. "Of course," he muttered, jamming his shoulder against it. Ravel didn't move. "You have 31 seconds before the corridor seal fails." "How do you know that?" "I don't, but it appears to respond to attention. We are giving it less." Trevor gave one final shove and the hatch gave way. He stumbled into the maintenance shaft, narrowly avoiding a metal strut that jutted from the floor at waist height. Ravel followed, angling its body sideways to fit through. The door groaned shut behind them, sealing with a hiss. They moved quickly through the shaft, the narrow passage forcing Trevor to duck frequently. Emergency lights cast long, flickering shadows that danced along the metal walls. "What you feel?" Trevor asked without looking back. "Noise where there should be none, pressure without mass." "Heat from a cold source." Trevor almost laughed. "You just described a haunted sauna." "I do not understand the reference." They reached the vertical junction. Ravel hoisted Trevor upward with one arm, then climbed effortlessly beside him. At the top, the hatch opened into a storage bay. It was quiet, too quiet. No vibration from the generators, no ambient hum from the lights. Trevor pressed his ear against the wall, no resonance. "Power's still down, nothing's running." Ravel scanned the room, no movement. "We are isolated. Where's the rest of the station? Their life signatures are no longer registering in my system." Trevor slumped against a crate, rubbing his temples. "So either they're dead, or whatever that thing is blocks your scans. Both are probable." He winced. "Ever think of lying to make someone feel better?" "That would be inefficient." Trevor exhaled through his nose. "You're lucky you're built like a tank." A soft clang echoed above them, then another, metal creaking against metal. Ravel froze. "That's not from the corridor," it said. "Overhead pipeline?" "No, that's footsteps." They both listened. The sound came again, deliberate, measured, not scurrying, not stumbling, walking. Trevor motioned toward the secondary exit. "Let's not wait to see if it wants to chat." The hallway outside was darker than before. Not pitch black, just dim enough to make everything look slightly wrong. Angles didn't align. Panels that had once been flush now bulged outward. Ravel paused at a junction. "This path leads to the hydroponics bay. That sector is isolated from central systems." "It may be unaffected. Then let's go garden hunting." As they moved, Trevor caught his reflection in a fractured monitor. He looked pale, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. Not just cold or scared, he looked sick. He wiped his face and his hand came away damp. Nosebleed, great. Ravel. You ever seen this thing affect humans physically? Not until now. Trevor sniffed, the coppery taste already in the back of his throat. Terrific, I'm the test subject. They entered the hydroponics wing through an emergency door. The air was thicker, warmer. The plants were still alive rows of leafy greens under dim grow lights, automated irrigation systems humming softly. Trevor leaned against a support beam. At least something's working. Ravel scanned the area. No anomalies detected. Trevor picked a stalk of mint and chewed it absently. You think it can't come in here? No, I think it hasn't chosen to. Trevor sat on a crate, head resting against the cool wall. My heart feels weird, define weird, fast, irregular, like it's tripping over itself. Ravel crouched. You are experiencing cardiac arrhythmia. Possibly caused by acute stress and low oxygen intake. I've had panic attacks before. This is different. Ravel's sensors clicked softly as it analyzed. Your blood oxygen is lower than optimal, heart rate elevated. Skin pallor indicates vasoconstriction. Is that your way of saying I'm not dying? You are not dying yet. Trevor barked a laugh. Comforting. He closed his eyes. The warm air helped. The sounds of hydroponics were strangely soothing, predictable, mechanical, safe. Then the lights blinked. Once, Ravel stood instantly. External interference detected. Already. Trevor stood, swaying. The lights blinked again, then again. A pattern emerged, 3 short pulses, then 2 long. Trevor stared. That's Morse code. I do not recognize the language. It's not a language, it's a code. Old Earth military, humans used it before digital comms. What does it say? Trevor counted the pulses. SOS. They both looked toward the glass doors leading back into the hallway. The corridor was empty. Ravel checked its internal systems. No transmission source detected. Trevor's lips felt dry. Then who's sending it? The lights blinked again. Same pattern. Could be survivors, he said, though he didn't believe it. Ravel tilted its head. Or a lure. Trevor hesitated, then walked to the door. We're not staying here forever. Ravel followed. Proceed with caution. They moved back into the hallway. The blinking lights stopped. The corridor stretched on, silent, no sign of motion. Trevor tried to recall the station layout. If we cut through Medbay, we can reach the docking port. Maybe launch an escape pod. Medbay is 2 levels below. Lifts are disabled. We'll take the access stairs. They turned the corner and stopped. The corridor ahead looked wrong, not just damaged, physically altered. The walls weren't aligned. The floor sloped slightly, though the station was built level. Panels had been rearranged, some upside down, some mirrored. None of this architecture is human, Trevor said quietly. Nor Federation standard, Ravel added. Trevor took a step forward, then paused. Do you hear that? A faint scraping sound echoed from the far end of the corridor, not metal on metal, something softer, like cloth dragging across tile. Then a voice emerged, faint and broken. A voice Trevor recognized. Trevor, is someone there? He froze. That's Harris. You left me. Why did you leave me? Trevor looked at Ravel. He was sedated. He shouldn't be able to. Do not respond, Ravel said. It is not him. The voice came again, louder now. I saw it. It sees you now too. Trevor backed away, stomach twisting. Why does it sound like him? Because it is using your memory to construct familiarity. That is how it navigates your perception. Trevor gritted his teeth. So it's in my head. No, it is outside your head. But it is learning to mimic what's inside. The corridor began to darken again, shadows spreading from the end where the voice had come. Ravel touched Trevor's shoulder. Run. They bolted, past twisted panels under flickering lights. They didn't stop until they reached the emergency stairwell. Trevor yanked the door open. Inside, the stairwell was intact. Cold, dim, but untouched. They descended quickly, boots clanging on the metal steps. At the bottom, the med bay door was ajar. Trevor hesitated. That wasn't open earlier. Ravel raised its weapon. Maintain visual awareness. Do not focus on auditory input. Trevor entered first. The room was dark, but the emergency power cast a faint glow from the wall units. Medical beds sat empty. Monitors blinked irregularly, then a figure moved behind the frosted glass of the quarantine chamber. Trevor approached slowly. "Who's in there?" The figure leaned against the glass. A woman, human, gaunt and pale. Her eyes were bloodshot and her lips moved without sound. Trevor turned to Ravel. Was there anyone else unaccounted for? No, all personnel were registered. "She is not among them." The woman pressed her hand to the glass. Her mouth formed a single word. Trevor stared. "She's saying my name." Ravel raised its arm. "Back away." Trevor stepped back as the lights flickered violently, then the glass cracked, not shattered. Cracked from the inside in a perfect spiral. Ravel grabbed Trevor and pulled him from the room just as the crack widened, splitting the panel cleanly. The woman inside vanished, not died. Vanished. Trevor leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "I'm going to pass out. You must remain conscious. You are the only one it continues to follow." Trevor blinked. "Why me?" "It may be drawn to your response. Your fear is a signal." Trevor laughed bitterly. "So I'm a beacon." Ravel looked down at him. "Yes." Trevor wiped his nose again. "More blood. We need to end this," he said. "No more running." Ravel nodded. "Then we return to where it began." Trevor stared. "The comms tower." "No, the silence. We must go to Central." The walk back to Central was silent, and not just in the literal sense. Trevor didn't speak because his jaw had begun to ache from the way he was grinding his teeth without realizing it. Ravel didn't speak because it didn't need to. For the first time since arriving on Helion 6, Trevor didn't find the quiet between them oppressive. It was the only thing that wasn't trying to bend his brain sideways. They navigated the lower service corridors, avoiding the main passageways where the spatial distortions had worsened. Ravel's internal gyroscope glitched once as they passed a junction that looked perfectly square but felt like walking through a tunnel that leaned left and right at the same time. Trevor stumbled and caught himself on the wall. "Your balance center is compromised," Ravel said. "Yeah," Trevor muttered. "So is my will to live." They reached the base of the command tower 35 minutes later. Half the lights inside still worked, the rest flickering at random intervals. Trevor didn't want to look at them too long. He kept thinking he saw shapes forming in the pattern, like a face repeating behind his eyes. The central control room was empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle, not even an overturned chair. It looked the same as it had the day they arrived, except now the consoles were dark and the air smelled faintly of warm dust and ozone. Trevor stepped over a dropped datapad near the communications terminal. "Why here?" Ravel didn't answer right away. It moved to the main console and placed its palm over the biometric pad. The system chirped once and powered up, though the lights around the room didn't brighten. "You said we had to return to where it began," Trevor said. "So what's your theory?" "This room's haunted." Ravel brought up a schematic of the station. "This location is the only one with uninterrupted subspace relays. Whatever signal brought the anomaly here, it likely originated through this hub." Trevor frowned. "You think we invited it?" "Unintentionally." "A subspace calibration test initiated 16 days ago transmitted on a frequency not previously cataloged." "You mean someone poked the universe in the wrong spot and knocked over a cosmic beehive?" "That is not an inaccurate metaphor." Trevor stared at the schematic. "So we're the beacon. And it's been following the signal. Then we must extinguish it. Not exactly a switch you can flip, unless you've got a way to close a hole in reality." Ravel turned away from the console. "Human perception appears integral to the anomaly's persistence. It responds to attention, memory, and emotion. It is not entirely physical, so it's quantum. Observed means it behaves, not observed it resets. Possibly, if we can sever the perceptual thread, then it can't maintain cohesion." Trevor nodded slowly. "Okay. So how do we do that without lobotomizing me?" "You don't." Trevor blinked. "Explain." Ravel stepped closer. You are the primary anchor. Every encounter the anomaly has made has been through you. It mimics your memory, uses your language, targets your emotional responses. Because I was the first to see it. Because you were the first to fear it in a way it could understand. Trevor rubbed his temples. That's not comforting. Comfort is irrelevant. He dropped onto a bench, elbows on knees. So what? I just shut down my brain. Meditate hard enough until it gets bored and leaves. I have constructed an alternate method. Trevor looked up. That's the first time you've said something that makes me more nervous. Ravel accessed a secured panel beneath the console and withdrew a small case. Inside were 3 vials of a translucent amber fluid and a dermal injector. Trevor leaned back. Nope, this is a neurochemical dampener. It will suppress your limbic activity for 7 minutes. During that time, your fear, memory recall, and emotional association will be functionally null. You want to drug me into apathy, correct? If the anomaly cannot feed on your perception, it may lose cohesion. And if it doesn't, then I will proceed with the secondary protocol. Trevor narrowed his eyes. Which is? Ravel didn't answer. Trevor stood. You're planning to blow the station. The anomaly must not reach another outpost. Containment is paramount. You came up with this plan without asking. There was no other viable solution. Trevor stared at the injector. And what happens to me? If successful, you will regain consciousness without memory of the anomaly. If unsuccessful, you will not regain consciousness. Trevor folded his arms. Well, glad we talked this through. Ravel held out the injector. Trevor didn't move. The room pulsed once subtle, as if the light dimmed and brightened without changing. The air pressure dropped for half a second. Trevor felt it behind his eyes. It's here. It is responding to the plan. It is aware we are attempting to sever the link. Trevor took the injector. 7 minutes. Yes. He pressed the device to his neck and triggered it. The effect was immediate. Not like falling asleep, more like a sudden drop in emotional volume. The fear didn't go away, it just became irrelevant. He felt the memory of his panic, but not the panic itself. I can't tell if this is horrible or peaceful, he said, sitting back down. Remain still. Focus on nothing. That's easier than I expected. The lights dimmed again. No flicker, just a long, slow fade. Trevor watched his hand. It didn't shake. Ravel stood at the console, monitoring waveforms. The anomaly didn't appear on sensors, but the ambient readings fluctuated in correlation with Trevor's vitals. At minute 3, the temperature in the room dropped by 12 degrees. Trevor blinked slowly. I can see it. Ravel turned. Describe. It's not a shape, it's a suggestion. Like a half-forgotten word. Ravel adjusted the dampener dosage. Maintain detachment. I'm trying, it's harder now. The waveform spiked. Minute 5, the walls began to ripple, not physically but visually, like looking through thick glass. Trevor's voice slowed. It's showing me things. Faces I forgot, my grandfather's voice, my first pet. It's not images, it's the feeling of them. Ravel approached. It is breaking through the suppression. I don't want to let go of them. Those are not real. Focus on the present. Trevor's pupils dilated. The waveform peaked, then began to drop. Minute 6, he gasped. It's leaving. Confirmed. Dissipation is occurring. I can't feel anything. You are not supposed to. Trevor's eyes fluttered. I think I liked feeling. Do not engage sentiment. The waveform dropped further. The lights in the room flickered once, then returned to full brightness. Minute 7. The anomaly was gone. Trevor slumped forward. Ravel caught him, scanned his vitals, and administered the reversal compound. Neural activity spiked, then stabilized. Trevor blinked slowly. What happened? You succeeded. He sat up. I don't remember. That is optimal. Trevor looked around the room. Feels quiet. It is. He stood slowly, stretching. What now? We purge the communication logs, recalibrate the array, and initiate a full station lockdown. Trevor nodded. You don't think it'll come back? No, it cannot. You are no longer its anchor. They worked in silence for the next 4 hours. Ravel coordinated the relay purge while Trevor handled the physical maintenance. Everything felt normal now, quiet in an ordinary way. The kind of quiet that didn't look back at you. By the time the station's systems were running again, a Federation retrieval ship had entered orbit. Trevor sent the all-clear. Ravel stood by the viewport. "You were efficient," Trevor laughed. "That was probably the most horrifying thing that's ever happened to me." "You were still efficient." Trevor looked out at the pale horizon of Helion 6. "Do you think it was ever alive?" "No, but it learned to pretend." Trevor ran a hand through his hair. "That's worse." "Agreed." He turned to Ravel. "So you ever going to say I told you so?" Ravel paused. "I will say you were not irrational, you were the warning." Trevor chuckled. "I'll take it." They watched the sunrise together, such as it was, filtered through the stormy atmosphere. Just light enough to feel like a new day. Trevor exhaled. "Let's never do that again." "Agreed."